This is the movie I watch when I want to feel like a black James Bond. Yes, this is the closest we have gotten to a black James Bond. Check this out if that sounds great to you. He's phenomenal. Great movie. All right, review over for those of you who have just left. For the rest of you, you know how it is. Let's get into it. John David Washington. Holy crap, man. I didn't know who he was until I saw this movie. I didn't know he was Denzel Washington's son. I just knew this movie looked fantastic. That's all I knew. Man, this movie, when I first saw it, it was confusing. I'll be honest with you. They go over a lot of concepts. They have a lot of dialogue that's over my head. This requires repeated viewing, but it's a movie you'll be compelled to come back to. There's a coolness about it. There's a coolness about his character. They don't even say his name. They just call him the protagonist. Just to kind of give you an idea. What's the story about? Well, it's about the protagonist stopping the end of the world, basically. How he does it gets a little bit trippy. They throw a lot of clues in there, even in the name. It's interesting. You see this whole poster right here? They're already kind of telling you some stuff here. You just might not realize it at first. It's one of those movies where they dabble into a bit of the real and a bit of the sci-fi, and they mix it together so well. It really is kind of hard to tell the difference. John David Washington's character, he plays how do I put it? He's a secret agent, really. He's really an American secret agent. He worked for the CIA. Something big happens. He ends up working for somewhere else without me ruining too much. And their goal is to stop a war that exceeds any known scientific understanding. I'll get into spoilers in a few. I'm just trying to get you an idea of what you're kind of jumping into. Robert Pattinson's in here too. He's fantastic. I really love Robert Pattinson. I have not seen any of the Twilight movies, but I've seen a bunch of movies with him since, and he's got that acting charm, man. He's so good in this movie too. He basically plays, I'll say, a co-worker of John David Washington's character. I say a co-worker because all these guys, they all kind of operate in the shadows. None of these guys are straightforward. You can't really tell who's a good guy, who's a bad guy. You can't tell what their agendas are or anything like that. This protagonist lives in a world, in an existence where he has to live by instinct purely. He can become anybody. He's not just a smooth James Bond character. If he's got to be a construction worker, he's a construction worker. If he's got to be a billionaire, he's a billionaire. If he's got to be an arms dealer, he's an arms dealer. He has to mold himself to fit whatever role he's in. And he does it pretty much effortlessly as the character. It's something to see. It's something special. He just moves and moves and moves. This is why I like to watch it, to feel like the Black James Bond. If I ever feel nervous, like if I'm on a plane or something like that, I put that movie on, man. I tell you, you feel the sense of like fluidity about him, the sense of just movement, the sense of just trusting your instincts and just moving forward and just adapting to whatever comes. That's his character. It's such a shiny way of exuding such qualities. That in and of itself is more than enough reason to watch this movie over and over again. Kenneth Branagh plays the main villain here. If you want to remember what Kenneth Branagh's been in, picture Hercule Poirot in the latest Poirot movies. Picture Wallander, if you've seen that TV show. The guy's a bit of a chameleon of an actor as well, which is great. In this one, he basically plays a Russian arms dealer. What's interesting about his character is he's such a ferocious, brutal crime boss. He's to the point where even his wife doesn't like him. He treats his wife like basically a slave or a captive, and he uses their son as sort of a leverage over her. Just to kind of give you an idea of his ruthlessness of it. Does he even care about his son, kind of thing? But he's got an edge. He has an edge that dives very well into the sci-fi. Something that makes him very hard to beat, basically. Not only that, but he's very cunning. So really, he's a very formidable foe to this protagonist. They travel all over the world in this movie too. You see them in Mumbai, India. They're in Thailand. They're in Oslo. They're in Kiev. There's somewhere else in Russia. I can't remember where. It's like some kind of town or city that's kind of off the books. I'm sure there's other places I'm missing too. There's a lot of ocean scenes. They're pretty much kind of everywhere. And it just really shows just the magnitude of this film. So, needless to say, it's a beautiful movie. Beautiful shots, big, grandiose action moments, just crashing giant planes. There's there's a scene in the movie. I don't want to ruin it here, but it's so massive and it's so deep into this sci-fi concept that they explore. It you're gonna want to see that alone multiple times. It's something that we don't see. It's not normally. Christopher Nolan goes over the top with this movie. I love it when they go way up. You know what I mean? Like way, way up. We just go into the crazy, and this movie really goes there. Only thing about it is, again, it goes over your head, especially the first time you watch it, because there's concepts here, which I'll explore in a little bit, that you might not fully grasp until later. So check it out. Let me know what you think. For those of you left, I'm going to get into some spoilers here. Okay, for those of you who have seen it, or if you're just interested in me just kind of spoiling things, this concept I think is a pretty big spoiler, so I'm just going to kind of say it if you didn't already kind of guess. There's two John David Washingtons here. There's a concept of time travel in this film. How they explore the time travel, maybe I'll leave off the plate, but the kind of time travel that these people explore, I believe, is more of like a closed loop time travel, meaning whatever you have done, you've already done, or whatever you will do has already been done, kind of a thing, if that makes sense. I learned of that concept from this woman, Ashley, I follow. It just goes over kind of scientific kind of aspects, and that's one of them, and that's definitely this movie. The thing that's interesting about this film, the thing I wanted to spoil, though, is it's not just one you that is traveling through time. Think about all the different moments that somebody might end up traveling through time at different points. This guy here, the protagonist, and Robert Pattinson's character, amongst other characters, they have traveled through time at multiple points throughout this story. So there's actually multiple versions of them in the same time, if that makes sense. So there are moments where there are two John David Washingtons in the same area, or multiple Robert Pattinsons, or multiple whoever. And this movie doesn't tell you all the times that you would see these people. You have to kind of find it. It's almost like a puzzle or like a brain teaser or something. This is one of the reasons we got to watch this movie more than once. It's what makes it really interesting. There's a moment here which I didn't realize the first time I watched it, but then I understand later. I'm getting one more spoiler here, where John David Washington's character, he is kept in isolation somewhere, and I just thought he was there just waiting on his next mission, but he was actually kept in isolation so he wouldn't run into the other version of himself doing other things. Does that make sense? It's very keep your eye on the ball, on the prize kind of a thing. So keep an eye out for that if you haven't noticed that, or if you were curious about any of that. There's also a concept of being able to speak to the future, and this kind of goes beyond these people's points of time travel. This is the edge that the main villain has, is he's able to actually speak even further in the future than even he or any other character that you have seen goes. And there's this communication that goes on between him and that further future that facilitates this end of the world kind of a thing. It's another concept that's actually quite mind-blowing, especially when you get to the concept of me calling this a closed loop kind of a time travel, because that almost gets into more of a multiversal kind of an aspect. I think. Let me know what you guys think about that. This is because the people in the future want this end of the world to happen. These people don't. So if these people succeed, then the people in the future's goals get thwarted. You know what I'm trying to say? It gets very... I'm having a hard time trying to explain it myself. But seriously, though, I want to talk about this movie. I'll be talking about this movie forever. Let me know what you think about any of this stuff. And yeah, have a good Sunday.